Gentlemen at the back, we're ready to go. Member Stewart.
Vaughn.
Councillor Timms, could you please leave? Thanks.
Okay, folks, I'd like to call the Information Technology Committee meeting. Is there any declarations of conflict from any of the board members? Not seeing any. We have minutes from the previous meeting, which is item number 1. That was the meeting that was held on October 13th. If I can have a mover and seconder for those minutes, moved by Member Gale, seconded by Member Caslin. All in favor of the minutes from the meeting of October 13th. Okay, thank you. So that item is carried. Item number 2 is a project status update through the chief on this item.
Yeah, I'll defer to Akram if I may, I'll update on the radio project.
Akram, please.
Good morning, through you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, we provided a one and a half pager update as of 2 days ago on the status of the project. So as the board is aware, we have cut over on September 28th. We're fully operational. We do have a couple of post cutover or system cutover activities. We've updated the schedule you see in front of you. And I guess worth noting is we've done a little bit over 200 vehicles now by replacing the old mobiles with the new mobiles. We have remaining about 178 left to complete or less. We are targeting within the next month will be complete. Page 2 of the update, it just lists some of the activities remaining to be achieved by the end of the year. As included in the Motorola contract, we ask for full coverage, portable coverage in the courthouses in St. Catharines and Welland. And that will require the installation of a distributed antenna system. We've done the analysis with Motorola. They have presented a solution. We have accepted it. It remains within the funding envelope of the contract. There's no extra, so there's no financial risk in there. And we expect to complete that by December 2016. Once we complete the migration of the mobiles in about a month, Motorola, as contracted, will continue to or will assist us with the decommissioning of those sites, and I've listed them in front of you. And we advised the board the last time that we are getting quotations of removing some of the equipment from other sites. So we'll come back and report back to the board on the cost for that. There was a question, Mr. Chair, about the OPP interoperability. The OPP will be providing us with the equipment, and we're looking to install it at the end of November. So this is a positive news, and that will continue our current interoperability that we have from the old system with the new system. And then the last task is more of a cleanup, is completing the installation of the fixed consulates at the districts. The project is progressing well. System is performing excellent from mobile and portables. We're quite pleased with the new system, and our membership are quite pleased with the reliability and the clarity of the WIRI system. So that's my update, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Just a few questions on that. Any questions from members of the board? Member Bonham?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering, the decommissioning costs, is it anticipated that those are going to be covered within the budget of the project? Thank you.
Through Mr. Chair, we're hopeful it will. That's one of the commitments we've made to the board, that we need to get some quotations and come back and report back. It's difficult to actually confirm, Member Bonham. We're optimistic it will, but again, until we get the quotations, I think we'll be in a much better position to report back if there'll be additional cost.
Thank you.
Member Marshall?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Akram, what are we doing with the old radios? Are we selling them? Are we shipping them off to third world countries?
Through you, Mr. Chair, as noted, if you note in page number 2, under item, I'm sorry, page number 2, item number 2, Motorola is responsible for disposal of the old radio equipment. This was actually within the contract that the legacy equipment will be collected by Motorola as part of the funding envelope and the contract.
So they're not taking it out of the cars, but they are destroying it or doing away with it?
I don't know what they're going to do with it after, but we are removing the equipment from the cars, so to replace them. But when Motorola comes and collects them, I don't know what they're going to do with it.
Okay, just a few questions then on the, you talked about site decommissioning and the possibility of some additional costs. Are you talking about the major radio antenna sites, and that's where your costs are?
For example, if we have to take down a tower, and we've advised the board at the last meeting that one of these sites that we may have to remove a tower. So this is part of the decommissioning. There's other sites that are not well, the sites that actually have been contracted are the ones in St. Catherine, Smithville, Pelham, Grimsby, and Beansville. But we're looking at, for example, if we have to bring a tower down and remove the equipment on it, we don't know what that cost will be. So this is some of the quotations we're looking at, outside of what Motorola is contracted to decommission.
So these additional costs would be something that Motorola did not, or we did not contract for them to actually undertake. Is that correct?
Let me get back to you on that. Let me just clarify that. I need to review the contract and just review that. But I know some of the sites were regional sites versus non-regional sites, or non-NRP, like they were private sites that we've co-located on. But let me come back and confirm that. I need to speak to our radio manager and just confirm that with you.
And I know at one time we were on a site in Smithville, which I think was Regional Public Works, snow plows, that sort of thing. It was sort of a triangular part of the road. I can't recall the number, but it's a major road. Comes up from Grimsby into Smithville, which is a regional building. And I'm not sure whether we were the only people on the tower or somebody else. I would also think occasionally a lot of those tower sites have a certain reuse, either for a regional network or somebody of that nature. So maybe at the next time you have a technology committee meeting, you just tell us what the sites that we would be impacted from a cost perspective of having to remove infrastructure. And Member Bonham.
Thank you, Chair. I just given to understand through the literature that there's some concern about additional costing, particularly with regard to an antenna site at Queenston Heights. That's Niagara Parks territory, I believe, in terms of site management. And I think if I read your reports correctly, there might have been some interest by Niagara Parks to use that tower once it was vacated by the police service. However, I get the drift through the written words that there's waning interest by Niagara Parks in reusing that tower, and I think there might be some significant cost to removing it, which they may require, if I'm not mistaken. Is that the gist of it? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct.
Okay, so I basically a request through the chief's office to Akram, if you could just come back at the next meeting with a report just indicating the sites that need to be decommissioned, and if you have a cost estimate by then, that would be appreciated, so we have some understanding of where this is going, and also if you would identify where the funds will come from in order to facilitate those removals, if it is not inside the existing contract. So can I can I get a mover or seconder on the report? Moved by Member Bonham, seconded by Member Stewart. All in favor of receiving this report? Okay, thank you. All right, item number 3 is a report for information to the board dealing with the use of body-worn cameras. I'll turn it over to the chief to take us through this report.
Certainly, thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. You recall some time ago, we advised the board through an information report when the issues of body-worn cameras for Niagara Regional Police officers was raised, that the board accepted our recommendation that we follow along and observe the pilot project being conducted by the Toronto Police Service. And this is also consistent with a recommendation by the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police right across the province. Rather than duplicating efforts, they were involved in the biggest project. And we advised this board that we would come back and report this fall on the progress. We have received the final report on their pilot project. And that report is actually a public report which is available. It's not appended to this, but I can get a link to you if you wish, or it's available on the Toronto Police website. But if it's easier, Deb, I can maybe, do you want me to fire you a link with that if anyone's interested in it? Okay, so I can do that. And basically their pilot is ongoing still. The initial portion of the pilot was finished and the report came out, and it was brought before their board in September. One of the biggest challenges, there's some positives and some negatives in relation to it. The biggest challenge at this point is data storage. The Toronto Police estimated at the time in their report that it would cost $85 million over 10 years for storage purposes to run their program if they were to put cameras on every frontline uniformed police officer. At the time of that report, there were no cloud-based storage solutions available in Canada for that purpose. Since that time, that is in the process of changing. We're led to believe that there are companies that are now going to develop Canadian-based cloud storage that may be available. So the Toronto Police have gone back to their board and they made a request, and they will be, and it's been granted. In fact, they've engaged another $500,000 to issue a non-binding request for proposal to go back out to industry to determine a number of things, some technology changes, but also to determine, get some, quote, possibilities of having a cloud-based, which would dramatically decrease this cost. So we just bring that back to you. I can tell you that it's been raised again at the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police, and our recommendation there, the executive body, to all the police services across Ontario, is to continue to watch this project as it unfolds rather than duplicating efforts. So we're just advising you, bringing back a report as we said we would, that's where the project stands at this point. So we're certainly not going to be moving forward on any body-worn camera project here in Niagara Region until such time as we hear the finality of the Toronto Police and see where the technology takes us. We'll take any questions if you have them.
So if Member Gale?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the chief. I see no report, Chief, on this ever about cameras and cruisers and that. Is that not a natural step before you go to officers having them, and have they tested that?
We haven't tested it here, and respectfully, that really is old technology. And it's, many services have done that. Toronto has in-car camera. I believe the OPP is, in fact, I think their project has ceased on the in-car camera piece. It's a really antiquated technology. The challenge with it, obviously, is the only thing you ever capture is where the car is pointed. So there is that piece of it. So we're not entertaining. We haven't looked at in-car camera project. Niagara Regional Police, for whatever reason, that technology came out probably 20 years ago, 15 years ago. Was never engaged here, and we don't believe that it's the time to look at that now. The new modern technology, if we're going to go anywhere, would be to consider the body-worn camera, and we haven't even made a decision on whether that would be appropriate or cost-effective.
Okay, thank you.
And just one question, Chief. If Toronto gets all their stuff, are you looking for a report back to us in about 9 months or a year, somewhere in that time frame?
I would think next fall would probably be another reasonable time period at the pace they go. And if they get their work done quicker, then we certainly come back quicker. But I think it would be fair to say that we would report back to you probably in August or September of 2017. By the time they get their RFP out and examine it and analyze it and make some decisions, I think we'll be that far down the road.
Thank you. Member Marshall. Members.
Just a question. When I was at the Canadian conference, we had a presentation actually from Toronto on the body cam project. And one of the issues that came forward as a bit of a negative issue was overtime, and the fact of officers coming off the road and then having to, you know, download and deal with the camera stuff before they could actually finish their shift. And it seemed to be fairly substantial. I know they're a service that's, you know, 10 times the size of ours or so. But is that something that that we've looked into as part of the costs of implementing such a program? Because sometimes it might be considered almost hidden, but it ends up, the more you have to do, there's more time involved. And I think the other part of it was the number of people having to catalog and sort, and whether it's cloud-based or not cloud-based, it still has to be identified, cataloged, sorted, and all of that kind of stuff. So just curious if you could enlighten us any more on that.
Yeah, certainly in Toronto, and I would suggest that if you extrapolate the numbers downward, I mean, we'd certainly be per capita, it would be similar. I think they're in the neighborhood of 40 or 50 additional full-time human resource personnel to function, to fulfill those obligations. The officers on the street themselves, it adds potentially an hour or 2 hours, maybe not in overtime, but it takes them off the road for cataloging and the technology and the redactions and all those types of things. And then there's the additional piece later from the storage where if the video is required for court purposes or the public has a right to make requests under FOI, it all has to be redacted, and it's an incredible amount of human resource time on top of just the cloud storage. You're correct.
Any other questions on this report? Can I have a mover or seconder to receive from information? Moved by Member Stewart, seconded by Member Marshall. All in favor? I got it right this time.
I would like the chief to comment on the use of photo radar that has just been, I believe, approved by the province. And are we intending to look at it?
Yeah, interestingly, I've seen the change in the province's position. Funny as it sounds, it's really not a police matter at this point. It'll be up to the regional, the region or the individual municipalities to make requests, as I understand it, to post cameras in school zones or community safety zones. So it really takes the police out of the loop. I just was asked that question by Mr. Sawchuk from the Standard, and I think our involvement would be we would cooperate with municipalities that were interested in doing so and providing them with intelligence information on high traffic areas, high complaint areas, that type of thing. But once the municipality decides to put a camera up in a school zone, that really doesn't have anything to do with the police whatsoever. It's a machine that's operated and functioned by the municipality or the region. And same for red light cameras.
So I didn't understand, maybe when the last time we had photo radar, the police didn't issue the charges? Is that so?
No, it was about 15 years ago, as I recall, and that particular use of photo radar I don't approve of. I think you'll find most police don't, because it didn't really address, in our opinion, the actual public safety part, which should be the driver behind this, not just collecting money. And I think that's what it was. But if I remember correctly, I think it was retired police officers often that were inside these vans with the technology and the machinery, and the machine just captures the speeder, captures the plate, fires it through a computer system, mails a ticket to me with a picture of my wife driving the car, but it's registered to me, so I had to pay it. And I was, in that case, able to prove that she was, in fact, driving my daughter to a piano lesson at that time, so.
Any other questions? So then a move to adjourn the information technology session. So moved by Member Marshall. And we don't need a motion for that. We don't need? Okay, sorry. Anyway, we're adjourned from information technology. We're going to move into some caucus items and board members only. And I thank everybody for this meeting.
Thank you, Chief.